I have very, very fond memories of those wonderful 10 years that Marvel spent building the first 3 phases of its cinematic universe. And if I was a betting man, I'd damn near bet the house that most MCU fans would pluck out a moment within that decade as their favorite. Iconic scenes were practically a dime a dozen in the MCU. I gotta give credit where it's due. The creatives at Marvel knew how to leave an impression. Whatever scene might be your favorite is your favorite for any number of reasons. Could have been who you watched it with, which characters were in the scene, how it was shot, the music, the acting, what the scene represented, what it taught you, or even as simple as how many times you caught yourself rewatching it years after that moment in the theater. And for me, that moment is unquestionable. In February of 2018, I sat watching Black Panther, completely engulfed in its story and world amongst the incredible visuals of action, technology, and culture. But when a simple but delicate scene between a father and son started to play out, it hit me on a level deeper than I'd felt on my journey thus far with Marvel. For all the reasons I'm about to go into, the ancestral plane scene in Black Panther is my most cherished Marvel memory. The 18th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Canon was written and directed by one Ryan Coogler. Black Panther follows the now King T'Challa, returning back to his nation Wakanda after... You know what? Usually I'd recap the movie, but come on. I really don't think I have to cover the plot of one of the biggest movies of all time. If you're watching this video, especially if you're watching it on my channel, then you've almost definitely seen Black Panther. If not, go fix that. For reasons that include performance, visuals, music, and thematic storytelling, the ancestral plane scene where T'Challa visits his father for the second time is the topic of choice for a video I've titled My Favorite Marvel Scene / My Most Cherished Marvel Scene / One Marvelous Scene, or whatever SEO cater title I thought best to put. After newly adopting the crown, uncovering national secrets, and being handed an embarrassing defeat at the hands of his cousin Killmonger, T'Challa is granted a second visit to his father in the ancestral plane. But this time, it's not about guidance, it's about reckoning. As a whole, Black Panther looks fantastic. It's shot incredibly well, and amongst those shots is the ethereal setting of the ancestral plane. Both times it's included, it looks gorgeous. Stunning daylight creeps over the endless savanna, casting long shadows on everything it touches. A mood of clarity, exposure, and vibrance is set before the scene even begins. The sunrise that illuminates this picturesque setting foreshadows the dawn of a new day, signaling that T'Challa has begun to see things more clearly now. I absolutely love the way this scene looks. The shots are striking and full of depth. Shout out to cinematographer Rachel Morrison for her stupendous work. Oh, and I don't know if you've noticed yet, but there's gonna be plenty of praise handed out in this video.
You gotta admit, this is cool!
But none more praiseworthy than our leading man. The outpour, anguish, and vulnerability on display by the late, great Chadwick Boseman is unbelievable.
We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more!
Regardless of any comic accuracy, Chadwick as T'Challa goes down as my favorite performance in the MCU. I'll admit, largely because of this scene, but also by just how big of an impact his performance left in the few Marvel properties he featured in. If you've seen any of Boseman's other work, you'll understand that this man was a generational talent, and performances like this were nothing new to him. I'm gonna leave a link in the description to Chadwick's tribute to Denzel Washington at the AFI Awards. I've not got much to say about it other than it's Chadwick, it's him, and it's a fantastic watch. This scene also utilizes my favorite cadence of dialogue, where so much is said with so little. The lines are curt, sharp, and hard-hitting, just enough to carry the deep emotions felt by both father and son.
You were wrong to abandon him.
It's almost hard to watch as T'Challa's emotions bubble up, and at the precipice is that line.
You are wrong! All of you are wrong! To turn your backs on the rest of the world!
That one powerful line gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. There's something incredibly grounded about hearing the short phrases of
the Xhosa language, along
with the characters using African accented English. The altered pacing, rolled R's, and unique emphasis brings an indescribable authenticity and rawness.
Kuba, I must take the mantle back. I must right these wrongs.
Put some music on. What do you think this is, a funeral?
No great scene is complete without an atmosphere of orchestra. His portfolio might not have been as stacked as it is right now, but with this singular piece, I had an inkling that Ludwig Goransson would have no issues leaving his mark in the industry. And it didn't take long because he snagged his first Oscar for original score with his impeccable musical achievement in this film. His soundtrack is a genius mix of African culture with splices of African American influence woven in. Everyone knows how legendary Black Panther's soundtrack is. It had a whole bloody Kendrick Lamar album along with it, but the track titled Ancestral Plane, naturally, is the one that hit me the hardest. Bloody brilliant, I say. Just as the scene is a critical break from the rest of the narrative, so is the score. Ludwig chose a more string instrument focused piece for the heavily emotional scenes, rather than the percussion that was found in the majority of the film's score. Strings like violin, viola, cello provided the emotional backbone of the track, conveying the spiritual and introspective nature of the ancestral plane. Continuing with how deeply rooted in African culture these tracks are, it utilized the fula flute, a traditional West African flute often associated with the Fulani people. The flute gives the track a uniquely airy quality, haunting even, participating perfectly in this otherworldly affair. From a storytelling standpoint, this scene is the definitive end of the second act. It's where our main character's conflict hits its peak, and the only way to get to the redemptive third act is by resolution. Our hero is on the brink of death, our villain has usurped the throne, and the lie that started this catastrophe is about to be confronted. The heart-shaped herb works its magic on physically healing T'Challa, but the emotional turmoil he faces can only be mended by a painful but necessary conversation. One where T'Challa doesn't seek comfort, but rather takes a firm stand against the ways of old, not only defining what kind of king he will be, but what kind of man. I can't talk about such an emotionally driven scene without going into the themes it discusses. Even after failing as a king and losing Wakanda, T'Challa doesn't greet his father with the same embarrassment or his head hung low like in his previous encounter. Rather, he lets out his frustrations and concerns about the man who just beat him.
He's a monster of our own making,
scolding his father and those that came before him for the situation Wakanda is in right now. Getting lied to by the person closest to him, his hero, his idol, it's a different kind of pain. It's a harsh representation of tradition versus transformation, breaking harmful cycles and evolving morally. What was once a son looking up to his father was now a leader with a pale look of disappointment for an old man's weakness for tradition. This scene isn't just about a son confronting a father, it's about legacy, and whether we continue to carry the consequences of those that came before us, or dare to do something different. There's a poignant biblical reference here, in how the sins of the father are visited upon the son, where the consequences of a father or leader's moral failings ripple down through generations. But in this moment, T'Challa refuses to pass that burden on. He challenges the lie. T'Chaka says a very abrasive line when trying to give reason for his lie on leaving Eric behind.
I chose my people. I chose Wakanda.
Who exactly does he see Eric as? This is his own nephew, the son of his brother. He's so corrupted by ideologies of tradition that it creates a divide within his own family. A divide that stands as a bitter metaphor for the divide we see in many African Americans with their roots back in Africa.
And I went and started in South Africa because I was hanging out with cats that was working in a hotel, and they took me back to their township, and they were like, hey, let's go do the ritual. We're gonna go do the ritual. And it was a bunch of young cats standing outside, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, this feels familiar, you know? Age like 50 to 70 was sitting in one section, and I'm like, that's what happens at my house on the weekends. So then we keep going, and we go into the kitchen, and the women are in there cooking, and they talking, and they cooking all this food. When I hang with my family on the block in Oakland or Richmond, and all the youngsters stand outside, and my grandma's inside cooking, you know what I'm saying? And we being Africans, you know, and even though we were told it was being hood, or it was being something else, we was being true to what we've been for thousands and thousands of years. So I felt connected, you know, in a way that was very profound.
Give him a round of applause, please.
T'Challa and Eric are both sides of the same coin. It's what happens when someone grows up with support and one without. Both are dealing with the loss of their fathers. Both even have the same concept of revealing Wakanda to the rest of the world. But one chooses collaboration and the other chaos. The spiritual landscape of the ancestral plane lends itself brilliantly to the atmosphere of this scene. Just to give a little rundown, the ancestral plane is basically the Wakandan afterlife.
You reach out with both hands in Bast and Sekhmet. They lead you into the green veldt where you can run forever.
When someone has the privilege of visiting the plane, it's when they've consumed the heart-shaped herb. And on such visits, the experience is much more tailored to the person visiting rather than those being visited. In other words, it's a reflection of the mental state the individual is currently in. A physical manifestation of conscious.
You chose me.
Impossible. I would never choose you.
Why did you take the herb?
It's no accident that the first time T'Challa visits the ancestral plane, it's twilight. He's a man in transition, full of reverence and questions. Visually, it's stunning. The purples, blues, and deep shadows. As the spirits of his ancestors perch above him as panthers looking down, he kneels, quiet, obedient, seeking their guidance. But the second time, everything changes. Same tree, same veld, but the atmosphere has shifted. There's no more twilight, just clarity. T'Challa doesn't kneel, he stands eye to eye with his father and ancestors. He went from asking how he can go on without him to painfully saying he can't stay with him. The image of King T'Chaka is also disillusioned in this scene. He was so focused on protecting Wakanda's borders and secrets that it became the driving force behind nearly every decision he made, even the one that got him killed.
We will not, however, let misfortune drive us back. We will fight to improve the world we wish to join.
It's hard not to see through the performance. He wasn't there to open Wakanda up. He was there to help control and contain the world's reach, to make sure no one came knocking uninvited. And in a way, you can't blame him. He may have been the Black Panther, but even he can't border control the Avengers. Ironically, that fear is exactly what comes to pass. Black Panther and Infinity War both show us that isolation doesn't keep the world out. A war quite literally lands on Wakanda's doorstep. And that quote,
You're a good man, with a good heart, and it's hard for a good man to be king,
starts to sound less like wisdom and more like an excuse for a flawed ideology. What makes this scene so special is that it isn't just a plot device, it's a thematic climax. In the MCU, most conflicts are physical. Here, the most important confrontation is emotional and philosophical. Not against a villain, but a beloved father figure. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it said everything. And honestly, how often does a superhero movie do that? I love diving into scenes like this, peeling back the layers of thought and craft that filmmakers like Ryan Coogler pour into their work. The first time I saw it, I didn't know all the choices that happened behind the scenes. It just hit. That's the power of great filmmaking. It speaks to your gut on the first watch and your brain on every watch after. Scenes like this are a testament to what Marvel was doing in that golden era. Experimenting, taking risks, and letting directors bring real personality into their stories. I remember being annoyed with all the BS back then about all Marvel movies being the same. How can anyone look at Winter Soldier, Guardians, Black Panther, Ant-Man and think that's even remotely true? This scene, this moment, is one of the most powerful things to ever come out of the MCU. At least in my opinion. But what about your opinion? What's the MCU moment that stuck with you and just never seemed to become unstuck? Let me know in the comments below. And on your way out, if you could be so kind, check out some of my other videos. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button. And as always, appreciate you watching.